Hello Internet, I am Ty, and welcome to another album review on Foreground music. Now today, you may be noticing that the production value is a bit lacking. I busted my laptop, so that's the reasoning behind that. Working on getting that fixed, but in the meanwhile I wanted to get my thoughts on this album out there, so let's just get into it. Today we're talking about the new Death Grips album. Now this is a band that needs very little introduction, so I'll be brief. We've got Zach Hill, the very talented Zach Hill on drums and production, Andy Morin on production and live electronics, and MC Ride or Stephen Burnett on vocals. I could talk a lot about this group's history of antics, especially in relation to their fans and to their record label, but I'm here mainly just to talk about the music today, so if that side of things does interest you and you're not apprised, you can go ahead and check it out on the internet. I mean, it's easily found on Wikipedia, so go ahead and give that a look if you need to. Since 2011, these guys have been putting out paranoid, aggressive, hip-hop flavored music tinged with elements of industrial music, dance, punk, noise music, all topped off with MC Ride's aggressive, shouted vocals. They're responsible for a few of my favorite records, and with each new release I am just completely amazed by how Death Grips managed to stay completely true to form while simultaneously pushing their sound forward in an engaging way. These guys easily could have jumped the shark a while back trying to recreate the formula they hit on so perfectly with The Money Store, but instead they've put out an album that strips the production back to a few elements just because they could, an album that pulls vocals out of the equation for a good portion of the runtime just because they could. All these different experiments with their sound. And more recently we've got pieces like Jenny Death that invite guitars into the mix far more often than is customary for them, to the point of creating what are basically a few full-on rock songs. All of these records have been good, most of them have been great. So here we are just over a year after the double album The Powers That Be, with a brand new 40-minute long LP called Bottomless Pit. And from track 1 here, Giving Bad People Good Ideas, the guitars are back alongside a rare female guest vocal. The guitars on this album are not as pervasive though as they were on the last album. In fact, the two most guitar-heavy tracks are the ones that bookend this track listing. After this cut, we've got the only pre-release single that we got, Hothead, which in retrospect is hilariously unindicative of what we were going to hear on this album. The drums, the vocals, the guitars are all so insane and chaotic. The only thing that isn't completely assaulting is the chorus with its steady beat and arpeggiated synths. This pair of songs opens up the album on a high note with plenty of energy, but I feel like the album really hits its stride on spikes. The instrumental, especially the drums and the verses, are just so dense and complex rhythmically that it sounds almost psychedelic. And when we hit the hook, we've got this really heavily phased bass sound that sounds like something you might even hear on like a bro step track, like from Zomboy or someone. But after listening to it over and over, I'm pretty convinced this sound was actually made using really heavily affected guitars. All in all, really fun track, extremely catchy, and luckily for the listener, extremely catchy is a running theme on most of this track listing. Whether they go for a plodding, heavy beat like on Warping or the upbeat industrial clang of Houdini, Death Grips are back with a ton of really well-assembled, catchy songs. I'm not talking Money Store level catchiness, but I don't think that's what they were going for, except for maybe on a track like 3 Bedrooms in a Good Neighborhood. Catchiest song on the whole thing, I cannot stop listening to it. Not sure yet, it's gonna take a few more listens, but I'm pretty sure it's my favorite song on the whole thing. The songs and Trash reel back the aggression quite a bit, with the former probably being the most normal we've ever heard MC Ride, with these verses about his apathy and lack of regard for anything, especially his fans. These tracks are a couple of very self-aware moments, with Ride even mentioning the band and one of its members by name at points. And we're covering even more new lyrical ground on Ring a Bell, which after looking over the lyrics again and again, I feel like this might be the first Death Grips breakup song. Par for the course, this song lacks any sentiment to speak of, but it does seem to see MC Ride very angry at a very specific female character. Instrumentally, this album has a gigantic palette of sounds that it's pulling from, and the way these sounds are assembled rarely disappoints, save for a few moments like the flat, bit-crushed guitars on the closing track here. But all in all, fantastic instrumentals all over this thing. And lyrically, we're looking at another round of esoteric jigsaw insanity for fans to spend the next few months dissecting and analyzing on message boards. A lot of really clever, rich lyrical ideas on this record. Guys, there's not much to say about Death Grips anymore. They keep coming back with revisions of their sound that keep fans engaged and challenged, and leaving them perfectly happy with the results, eagerly awaiting the next installment of this crazy anthology. And Bottomless Pit is no exception to that. I'm giving this album 4 out of 5 stars. Thanks so much for checking out my review, guys. Go ahead and throw me a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Comment down below, let me know what you thought about this album. Hit me up on Facebook and Twitter, links in the description for that. Subscribe by clicking on my stupid face for more music-related content in the future. And remember, life's too short for background music.